You're listening to Theater in College Hoops. I am Subbi alongside me, Taylor Dammel, as we dive straight into Sweet 16 and Elite 8 weekend. We are brought to you by Belly Up Media. Go download, subscribe, rate, and review us on whichever device it is that you use. Your college hooper of the day, we're going to go to Ames Naz Mitru Long. That's right, the former Cyclone there. He was a 2016-2017 All Big 12 team member. Did my best to try and identify some great players from teams that are currently in the Sweet 16 field. Of course, Iowa State out in Boston. They're going to be playing the Illini. That's going to be a terrific game. Taylor and I are going to be breaking all of that down, all the Sweet 16 matchups down here in this episode. But Naz Mitru Long, a really nice player for the Clones. He was there from 2012 to 2017. Didn't transfer any of that. He was just a lifer, basically. He is a Cyclone great. I'm sure anytime he's in Ames, he doesn't have to buy a drink. Naz Mitru Long is your college hooper of the day, and I'm sure he's going to be watching. Check out the website at theaterandcollegehoops.com and make sure to follow me at CBB Theater to find out where the feet is. You should also follow Taylor at Taylor Dammel. Let's open the curtains. Happy Sweet 16 day, everyone. Tonight, we have some great matchups, the first of 8 games in the Sweet 16, and we're going to dive into all of them and give our predictions here. But before I do that, Taylor, I want to tip my cap to you and give you a shout out. This is kind of a surprise for another great take that you had, my friend, in the preseason.
Another one.
Mm-hmm. Another notch on the old Dammel belt, if you will. This is with respect to the Pac-12, okay, and the coaches. Now, I couldn't find the actual audio, so I don't necessarily have the proof. That's why we need an intern doing all this stuff. Maybe a listener, a theater goer, if you care to disprove us, you can comb through all the hours of content that we've done. But I was trying, Taylor, before we jumped on here to find out this specific audio so that I could play it. I wasn't able to find it, but I know for a fact that you said it. Like, I'm very, very confident that you said it, and it came to fruition. So this is all a big buildup. Andy Enfield is apparently going to be taking the job at SMU. That is the scuttlebutt. I don't know if anything's official, but it's basically across the finish line. So how does this relate to you, Taylor? Because when we look at the Pac-12, all right, we have Washington State, whose head coach just left. We have Washington, who dismissed their head coach. We have USC, who got rid of their head coach, or Andy Enfield left. And we have Stanford, who got rid of their head coach. How many is that? How many did I just count? Was that 4?
Yeah.
Let's go over this again. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Wazoo gone. And I'll stop talking here. I know I've been talking for a while, but Wazoo gone, Washington gone, USC gone, Stanford gone. That's 4. Taylor, I vividly remember you saying there's going to be 3 to 4. There very well could be 3 to 4 Pac-12 coaching places open, and you may have nailed all of them. I don't know if we necessarily saw Andy Enfield leaving USC, but you for sure talked about Mike Hopkins at Washington.
Well, that was easy. That was easy one. Yeah.
For sure talked about Jared Haas at Stanford, and then Wazoo and USC. Sorry, man, but take this time to gloat.
Well, no. I'm going to push back on the gloating and say I probably thought that Washington State was going to need a new coach because they were going to fire their coach, not he was going to get.
You got to the right answer. You got to the right answer. You just didn't show the right work, but you got the right
this is the ultimate not showing your work situation. So I feel like we did discuss Andy Enfield potentially taking a different job, though, because I think part of this discussion was how USC just doesn't, like, this is their peak, right? Like, they don't care about basketball. And so, I think obviously I think we flipped Wazoo and USC in terms of how we thought they were going to finish in the conference this year, right? So it's almost like Enfield took another job because we thought he was going to take another job because they were going to have a great year with their backcourt. And in reality, it was flipped with Wazoo there. So, but no, Subbi, I just got my my ear to the streets in the West Coast here all the time, man. That's what I'm out here to do. Is just pulse of the people here out in the West, let's call it.
It's very impressive. I think a lot of poor Wazoo, by the way, losing their
Oh,
AD to Washington. Washington's some snakes in the grass, huh?
dude, they are the worst. I mean,
I almost
you,
respect it.
you have to. I was with some Washington folks today, and it's kind of like it's almost like a Duke, North Carolina type of thing, where it's like the Seattle people like Washington, right? And then the rest of the state east of the mountains, which is 80% of the land mass of the state, not 80% of the people, but 80% of the land mass of the state, are like, F Seattle, F. You think the country hates Seattle and everything that's going on in Seattle? You should listen to someone who lives 100 miles east of Seattle. They hate Seattle more than anyone else in the country.
Like
Spokane,
further away from
yeah,
Seattle.
right. Spokane people hate Seattle people. I'm a Spokane guy personally. I'm a Spokompton guy. Shout out Eastern Washington University there. But yeah, but now the whole country hates Washington because now they can see this is who Washington people are. They're just or UW people. Unfortunately, my cousin's a UW person. She's great. We like her a lot. But yeah, they got a weird the whole school, and actually you could say maybe about the city of Seattle too. They have this like elitist kind of thought for not being the most elite athletic department, right? Like they kind of have this like think of how we've discussed their basketball program. Their basketball program sucks, but they talk about it like, oh yeah, we always have the talent. It's like next year is our year, and it's like, no, you guys aren't even as good as ASU is. They suck. Like it's a weird mentality they have there at UW.
So regardless, a lot of change and new face. Well, the Pac-12 is no more. So wherever these coaches head off to, and whoever's coming in, they're going to be in different conferences. It's going to be interesting though. And right away, right, you look at some of the coaches in the Pac-12. You think of the elder statesmen like Dana Altman, and then guys like Mick Cronin and Tommy Lloyd are right behind him, right? Uh, Craig Smith right behind them, or maybe right around the same time, probably. Mark Madsen is now no longer going to be the rookie anymore. So
Mm-hmm.
it's all very interesting. All very interesting there.
Well,
So 4
think
teams without a head coach.
think about this. So we have as little of as one game left about caring about any Pac-12 anything.
Yeah, it's gonna be
Now,
great.
obviously, it's our own institution, so it kind of doesn't even count that way, But I mean, like, we don't care anymore. I mean, hopefully, we have several games left to care about a school that resides in the Pac-12. But yeah, it's almost over, like officially over. Crazy.
For to be specific, let's dive into those games then, Taylor. It is Sweet 16 Thursday. I'm so excited that we're here. This is when the cream of the crop rises to the top, and we get to see some great matchups, which we are going to take a look at. And obviously, Taylor, we need to provide some predictions. Okay. So, what we're going to do first with the first game of Thursday, Arizona Clemson on CBS in LA. Talk to me. I think we both are going to end up at the same spot, but give me some of your rationale as to why you have Clemson winning. Just kidding. Just
Oh,
kidding.
we have to have reasons for this one. Oh, okay, gotcha. Um, well, I think the reasoning here is that I don't know if any of Clemson's is there anyone on Clemson that you would want to replace a guy on Arizona with? Starting lineup.
Like, oh, yeah, I'll take PJ Hall instead of like
Well, oh yeah, right. Over.
like
Yeah.
Philly D or something. No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Right. So there you go. I mean, it's this one is if Clemson beats Arizona, then it's the biggest upset of probably the Sweet 16 at this point. I guess NC State you could throw in there as well as we've previously discussed. But I just don't. Arizona is more talented. They're bigger. They're harder, better, faster, stronger. I mean, there's no metric you can find for Clemson here. So, Arizona, Clemson doesn't even necessarily do the things that Arizona does badly well either. Like they don't really they don't turn you over very much. Well, that's what Arizona is probably worst at, maybe, or at least what would maybe give us, you and I, the most pause is kind of they're a little lax with the ball at times. Well, Clemson's not going to turn you over anyway. there's really not a lot for me to find how Clemson's going to win this game. Arizona has to play. Clemson has to play their very best game, and Arizona has to play a C plus or B minus. I think even if Arizona plays a B minus game, they still win this game.
So I think this is going to be a lot tighter than most expect it to be. I think the line is
Wow.
at 7.5. Yeah, I would take Clemson to cover this game. I think Arizona is going to win by 6 or 7. Uh, Chase Hunter has been playing really well for Clemson in this tournament, out of nowhere, really. I don't think Chase Hunter had the best end of the season for the Tigers, but he's put up 20 points in both their games. The key for Arizona, I think, is going to be getting started quickly from beyond the arc. You look at the opponents that Clemson played against, and I think that their total 3-point makes between what it was New Mexico and then Baylor was 9. I think both of those teams combine to shoot and make 9 3 balls. Arizona needs to be better than that, right? Because otherwise, Clemson's going to just be in the game, and they dismantled New Mexico. By all accounts and purposes, they dismantled Baylor too, to be honest with you. It was just a lot closer. But Chase Hunter is really good. What I'm a little concerned about, Taylor, is the pick and roll that they can utilize with a stretch big man, which we saw with Dayton. Now, Tommy Lloyd did a wonderful job of adjusting and pulling Umar Ballo off, and he didn't play for the last 7 minutes. So, is that going to happen again? Right? You talk about the turnovers. Clemson actually takes care of the ball pretty well. But all in all, when I look at it, Taylor, Arizona's just way more athletic. They have better shot makers and they have a better team overall. And I think they have a better bench too than Clemson. So I think Arizona's going to rely on that. I think they're going to rely on the athleticism. And I expect Pella Larson to be a steadying force, creating some havoc when he's on the defensive end. I would just say watch out for that pick and roll and PJ Hall. Ian Shefflin's going to piss a lot of Arizona fans off because he's going to create second chance opportunities. He's a junkyard dog on the boards. I don't care if he's undersized compared to a Krivas or a Ballo or maybe even a Keyshawn Johnson. He's going to create havoc on the offensive rebounding front. If you're Arizona, make sure you box him out. But basically, the keys, I think, for Clemson to win are to take care of the basketball, which is not what Dayton did in the first half, and Arizona got out. Keyshawn Johnson was windmill dunking, and they got up by 17. So I think Clemson needs to take care of the basketball, and I think they need to slow the pace down because much like Dayton, they like to play a slow pace. But we saw Arizona get it out of the mud in that game as well. So I just think it's going to be a little tighter than some expect, but I still think Arizona is going to win because they got the horses and Clemson doesn't.
I I mean, let's ask this comparison. Do you think PJ Hall is better than Deron Holmes?
No, I don't.
Well, yeah. I mean, so yeah, I don't even know if the pick and roll is going to be even that, uh, you know, helpful for them in the sense that they already lost. Now, I think the rest of Clemson is better than the rest of Dayton
Dayton.
as a whole, right? Um, but I don't even think in that circumstance, I mean, I think this is just an agree to disagree situation. I don't even think in that circumstance it's going to be that beneficial for them anyway, because we've already seen Arizona's already had to guard a guy like PJ Hall that's better than him, right? And I don't know. I'm really trying to take my Arizona hat, literally that I'm wearing right now, off to look at why Clemson win this game. I actually think this game might be better for Arizona than even the Dayton game, because the Dayton game was a little unique in that it started real early on the, out west. For some reason, the scheduling had started west and worked east, which makes no sense. But this is in LA. It's going to be very, very, very pro Arizona crowd. There might be 7 Clemson fans there. Um, I'm trying to find all the ways for Clemson to gain momentum here. They don't even have the crowd on their side in this circumstance. I just don't see it happening for Clemson. I legitimately think this game might be a better result for Arizona than Dayton.
Bro, I hope so. I really do.
Well,
And of
yeah,
course,
yeah, right, yeah.
I mean, look, of course, and everyone who knows us at this juncture knows that I'm a pessimist and like I hate everything and the world's falling. And I figure like everything bad's going to happen to Arizona. You're on the opposite end of the spectrum. And I think rationally, folks are going to lean towards what you might have to say. But let me at least give ourselves some good karma and say that
Sure.
it's going to be close and I'm not overlooking
There you go.
Clemson. How about that? But
Under promise over deliver situation here, or what? Yeah.
just deliver, man. I don't care if you under deliver or over deliver. Like, just deliver. I gotta have these Wildcats moving on, man.
So I will say, and just to kind of try and take some of my bias out of it, I wouldn't feel good if this game was Baylor instead. I feel much better about this game that it's Clemson and not that it's Baylor. If it was Baylor, I would have been like, yeah, I'm with you. This game's probably going to be closer than we want. And there's going to be up and down and they're going but to me, Clemson I just don't see it. I was pretty high on them at the beginning of the year, but now that we're to this point, right? I just can't find it. So that doesn't mean it's not going to happen. I just can't find a way that it does.
So last two things I want to bring up on this game. One, I was lucky enough to jump on with the sleepers guys, Greg Waddell and Carter Elliott, to break this game down and do a prediction. Greg Waddell told me, and this is interesting, Taylor, per Ken Palm, like he has on his website comparisons for players. Do you know who he's compared Kylan Boswell to? Like other college players? Doesn't have to be past, it can be present. And as a matter of fact, his comparison is also going to be playing in this game. Joey Girard. I don't know if I like that, by the way. I don't know if I like Joey Girard as a comparison to Kylan. Yeah.
So, I mean, I wonder.
By the way, the only reason I bring that up is because he might be the only toss-up. Like, would I take Joey Girard over Kylan Boswell?
Right.
Maybe, but that's it.
I mean, Kylan Boswell will need to play better, than last time. The thing is that Arizona has that I just don't think people nationally even have quite latched onto as much as they should is Jaden Bradley is the most efficient, most impactful sixth man in the country per like a ton of metrics.
Yes.
So especially defensively. He in a lot of ways, I don't want to say won, but certainly he was Trevor Hoffman of the game against Dayton. Shout out Arizona Wildcats.
That's unreal.
Yeah, but I mean, he was.
No,
he was a closer.
Right. Sorry, man. I'm just taken aback by the baseball. I mean, I guess opening day is right around the corner. You go with the legend today. Trevor Hoffman.
Yeah, and an Arizona Wildcat, Trevor Hoffman. Yes. Come on, too. This is all in. We got it together.
No, I get it. Yeah. I get it. It's just funny as hell. It's very funny.
But I think it's under discussed how much impact Bradley, JB has had on this team and on each game. He probably should be the starter, but he plays his role off the bench so well. So now you're talking 6 better players than Clemson before we get to their best. It starts to get a little murky there. So, just throwing that out there as well.
Yeah, the only other thing, my last point on this game is it's giving me heavy vibes of both times Arizona played Xavier in the Sweet 16 under Sean Miller. The first time was against Matt Stainbrook, the lovable big man, and Arizona did end up winning that game. But I went into that being like, Xavier can't hang with Arizona, and it proved to be true. Second time was when Arizona had Lowry Markkanen and Alonzo Trier, and Chris Mack's Xavier team ended up winning that game, even being down 8 with like 2 minutes to go, because Trayvon Blewett decided to be an absolute superhero. That was also, I was entering that game saying, Xavier doesn't really have the horses to keep up with Arizona, and they didn't until they did for 2 minutes. So I would very much like Arizona to take care of business, much like they did the Stainbrook Xavier team, and not make it like the comparison with the Trayvon Blewett Xavier team.
I had to watch that second game. I was at the Stainbrook game at Staples Center. But
we were watching the second one together.
Yeah. Remember where we were?
I could have sworn we were on the couch at the house.
No, we were not. I was at Social Tap in Scottsdale with a bunch of Wisconsin fans.
Yeah, that was not a good era to be around Wisconsin.
It wasn't a good era of my life in general, but but that was just that was not ideal that day. I don't think we were watching that one together. I'm going to push back on this.
Okay, I for sure was watching at the house.
I think we watched the rest of the day together.
Okay.
But there were reasons I had to go out and do stuff, and that was not really what my choice. But yeah, just an awful day all around that time. So let's more positive vibes on this game, Sue. Come on.
I like that. All right, so we both got Arizona over Clemson. Let's move on to the rematch, Taylor. of last year's national title game, and that's San Diego State versus UConn. I got to tell you, man, first and foremost, I had no idea, right? I shouldn't say I had no idea, but when San Diego State absolutely dismantled Yale, that was going on at around the same time that Houston and TAMU were in a dogfight. So it didn't really dawn on me. It didn't really grab my attention that, oh, San Diego State won. They're definitely going to play UConn, and we got a juicy rematch. I feel like no one cares about this rematch. Is it because UConn is just that dominant? Am I going crazy here? Like, so many, a year removed from playing for a national title, and it does not have any near the juice that some of these other games do.
No, I completely agree, and I've been wondering about that this week too, where it's like if San Diego State was North Carolina and North Carolina had played UConn for the national championship last year, this would be the most discussed game, right? But I just think San Diego State just doesn't have the name cachet that for that people are looking for, and I don't agree with that. I'm just saying I think that's reasoning behind that. I think for me, this is a game that is going to be closer than 11 and a half. I think. I mean, I think UConn's going to win this game. They're still the best team in the country, just like they were last week. And so I think Ledee is going to have another great game. Personally, he's going to have to for this game to be close. But I think at the end of the day, UConn again is too powerful, too big, too talented, and too together to lose this game to San Diego State. I'm not saying San Diego State is going to keep it close because they have an absurd amount of talent as it relates to the comparison against UConn, but I do think there is that revenge factor that's going to stick around. I know revenge factor doesn't quite work as well in college athletics as it does now because half the team's different, if not more. But I think there's a little bit of it that is still going to be like, all right, guys, this is they ruined us last year. Let's go get them back. So I still think UConn wins this game. I still think it approaches, like more like an 8 or 9 or 10 even. But I think San Diego State's going to keep it closer than 12.
Yeah, I think San Diego State, this game is going to be a little bit like the title game last year, Taylor, where for the most part, UConn had that wrapped up, put a bow on it, and they were going to win that game. But there were some little stretches that San Diego State made it somewhat interesting. And I think maybe it was even more interesting because it was the title game. And you say to yourself, they're within 9 or 10. Like maybe they can actually come back, pull this off, and we can actually get some theater in the title game, which we never really got. I kind of see that happening here. I think it's going to be touch and go in the beginning. I think we're going to feel each other out. And I think San Diego State's defense will come out with their hair on fire. I don't expect UConn to just blitz the opponent. I don't expect them to blitz San Diego State like they've been blitzing teams in the first two games, right? Stetson and then following that up by shutting down Boo Buie, which has been super impressive. But UConn's defense has actually been really stellar. And so if they continue to ratchet that up, I don't think San Diego State's going to find many answers. I think Jaden Ledee is going to come up to the plate. And he's going to be big time. Like, I think he's one of those guys. And Dan Hurley does a good job of identifying and giving praise to guys that really deserve it. I think he's going to be very, very, I don't know, what's the word? He's not going to be happy with Jaden Ledee, but he's going to see Jaden Ledee and give him his respect because I think Ledee's going to demand it in this game, no matter who they throw at him, whether it's like a Caravan, whether it's a Donovan Clingan. I don't know. But it's just too much UConn. They're too good. They're too much of a well-oiled machine. They're better at the guards. And I think they're going to figure out a way to poke some holes in that San Diego State defense. This is what I said about UConn, and I noticed this very early. I don't know if there's stats to back this up, but their runs are like haymakers, Taylor. An 8-0, 10-0 run in the first half very well could be the difference in the game. Like that may be it. Do all you want to try and come back into it, scratch and claw. If you give UConn a double-digit lead, I think at pretty much any point in the game under, I don't know, 14 minutes in the first half, you are climbing a severe uphill battle. Like, I don't know any teams that can outscore UConn by any margin over the course of 20 minutes. Can you outscore UConn by double digits with like 24, 25 game minutes? I don't know. I don't know if you can. So I think this is going to be touch and go to begin, but I think UConn's going to pull away sporadically and throughout.
It's a problem for San Diego State that they're not different stylistically than UConn is really. UConn plays even slower than San Diego State, like you said. So there's not even really, I mean, San Diego State to win this game is going to have to kind of play a game that they're not even comfortable with because Connecticut's going to be completely fine with playing this game at a snail's pace, right? Because they know they can score the ball as efficient, if not more efficient, than every other team in the country, no matter what the pace, or I should say, especially at that slow pace. So, I mean, San Diego State is going to have to, like you said, defend hard and just straight up, they're going to have to hit more shots than they usually do. I mean, I think that's the long and short of it there. They only average like 12 assists a game, which is nothing. And they're going to have to. I mean, they got a great coach in Brian Dutcher. So, I mean, I'm not saying that they're not capable of it, but they can't. I don't think they can go in there and just say, hey, if we play our game, we'll win because UConn is a better version of the game that they play.
It's got to be a good matchup, but I think we both have UConn there. Moving on then to the next game, Bama, North Carolina. This is going to be a fun matchup. By the way, folks, in LA, there's no shortage of revenge game scenarios. Okay. If Bama moves on to play Arizona, you got Jaden Bradley, and also on the Bama side, trying to get revenge to beat Arizona from their game in Phoenix in December. And then, of course, Caleb Love versus North Carolina, if that happens. Also, Steve Robinson, assistant coach for Arizona, he came over from Carolina, okay? And some folks may have said that he got passed over for the head coaching job at Carolina. I don't know if he has any bad blood as well for the Heels, but there's that storyline as well. Also, if Clemson moves on, right? Clemson, North Carolina, ACC, I think that would be like the third time they've played this year. Or Clemson, Bama. This is an absolute stretch. I'm hurting myself stretching, Taylor. But there is a football storyline, I suppose. I mean, these two teams played for like 3 straight national titles, and now they're going to be playing for a regional title potentially. Clemson, Alabama, very interesting. But Bama, Carolina, who you got in this one?
North Carolina, just simply because they're incredibly better defensively than Alabama. Both of these teams can get out and run. North Carolina plays fast, not as fast as they usually do, and they don't play as fast as Alabama, but they still are fast. Bama just can't guard you or me or my daughter or my dog. I mean, they're going to have to play their best game of the whole year, essentially, to win this game. They have to get on, kind of just like we said about San Diego State, but Alabama actually has the ability to do it, and San Diego State doesn't really have the ability to just press the gas instantly. Like, they have to go from the beginning. Alabama does. Like you said as well with UConn as it relates to San Diego State. North Carolina gets like a 12-point lead. They're so good defensively that even they can even shut down a team that's as potent as Alabama, or maybe not shut down, but they can curtail that a little bit. So I think that Mark Sears is going to have to play his best game of the year, and then North Carolina is just going to have to play less than their best game for Alabama to win. So I'm still taking North Carolina here. I know we're all chalk so far, but I do think Alabama has a better shot than San Diego State or Clemson in beating North Carolina. North Carolina is the quote unquote weakest 1 seed, right? And Alabama is obviously the highest seed of the other 2 teams that we've talked about. And they're playing great basketball right now. But I still think North Carolina is, if it gets to crunch time and it's late, I have zero confidence in Alabama being able to do anything on the defensive end as it relates to especially like RJ Davis and Armando Bacot and all that. I just think that if it's close late, they're going to be able to get 1 or 2 more stops. Both these teams can score at a high rate. North Carolina is just going to win this game because they can get 1 or 2 more stops in Alabama.
I'm going to err on the side of Carolina, but I think we're going to be treated to 2 good games in LA, Taylor. And this is the nightcap, and I'm going to take Carolina by a few possessions. You mentioned the defense for sure, but I think this is going to be a game for Armando Bacot. I think Armando Bacot needs to flex his muscles down low. I think he needs to be the best big man on the court, and I think he needs to tap into his experience in this scenario. Like, I think that's very important for Bacot to do. I think the interesting matchup, though, is going to be Harrison Ingram versus potentially Nick Pringle That's going to be big. Harrison Ingram has been such a revelation for these Tar Heels, and he's been one of the best transfers in the entire country. How is he going to match up with Nick Pringle, who's super athletic and can defend? Uh, he's one of Bama's best defenders, I would say. Nick Pringle. There aren't too many of them. And then, of course, you got the great guard matchup or the great point guard matchup in R.J. Davis versus Mark Sears. Mark Sears has been playing out of his mind. He's been the driving force of this Bama team, the heart and soul of the team. My question for Bama, and I think this is where they're actually not going to get their contribution, and I think this is where the game might be won or lost. Seth Trimble or Grant Nelson. Grant Nelson was a highly touted transfer, and I don't think Grant Nelson has lived up to the expectations, truth be told. He's a fine player. He's a strong, strong player, but I think Bama fans were expecting more from Grant Nelson, and I don't know if he's delivered that. Seth Trimble, on the other hand, has been really good for Carolina. He's been very steady. He's been super consistent. He had some great key plays against Michigan State to quell some of their runs and help Carolina get back in their game. I think that's going to be the difference. Just not enough from Grant Nelson for the Tide, but getting great contributions from the others for Carolina, highlighted, in my opinion, by a guy like Seth Trimble and maybe even a guy like Jalen Washington, who's been pretty good. And last but not least, Elliot Cadeau, bro. You gotta make him respect you a little bit. Whether that's first and foremost driving to the hole because Bama can't play defense, I think you should do that actually, as opposed to settling for a wide open three, which is what they're going to give you.
Well, I think you make a great point about Grant Nelson. I think people thought that Grant Nelson, me included or us included, I think we talked about this on our preview episode, was going to have like a Dalton Connect. Not as good as Dalton Connect ended up being this year, but I think a lot of people thought they were going to have similar impact on their team. Obviously, clearly one guy had a little more impact on their team than the other in
Slightly.
the SEC. One's literally the second best player in the country right now, right? But I think people thought, am I remembering that wrong? I think people thought they were going to have a similar impact.
I know I did. Like,
Yeah.
I thought I was super pumped to see Grant Nelson make his, because people are talking about Grant Nelson in the offseason like he's this super enticing NBA player. And he still could be, but he hasn't played like it.
I think we both thought that he was probably going to be their best player, Alabama.
Yeah,
Maybe. Yeah.
I think I did. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, would be a hell of a time to prove that right now. Yeah, So, um, no, I think that, yeah, I think if Grant Nelson could play a little up to that expectation, it certainly would give them a better shot. But you're totally right. It's going to be an awesome game. This will be the second funnest game of the day, in my opinion, on Thursday.
Yeah. So why don't
And
we
Arizona isn't the one that's not number one. Yeah. So,
I think it's this one, huh? The eyes.
yep.
Illinois, Iowa State. This has me Pavloving, Taylor. This
Mm.
has me ready to rock. What do you want, folks? You want the number one offense versus the number one defense? You got it. You got it in the nightcap. Settle in, grab your blanket, maybe a pint of ice cream, pour your glass, a
Ooh.
nice red, whatever you want, because this is going to be an absolute barn burner. I can't wait for this one. Illinois, Iowa State, Taylor. Who you got?
I'm barely sure I made a decision at this point, honestly. I think I'm gonna roll with Iowa State. I have them going to the Final Four. I have Arizona and Iowa State going to the Final Four. Out of the game out of this we've discussed here today. So, whew, I'm just so excited for this matchup. I know I like to talk about the stylistic, versions of teams a lot. This is my like Super Bowl in terms of stylistic matchups, right? The number one Ken Palm offense in Illinois versus the number one Ken Palm defense in Iowa State. What an incredible matchup. Um, the I really don't I really can't figure out who I really want to take. I like defense. And I guess that's why I'm taking Iowa State. I think Iowa State's a better story than Illinois.
Sure.
Um,
You sure about that?
I know.
We have we love J.R. Blount. No one on Illinois come on the program, so maybe that's why I'm leaning that way. But
True. Maybe, yeah. Okay, you can do that. So, but I mean, Iowa State being picked where they were, supposed to finish
yeah,
and becoming this defensive juggernaut. And I will say this: this is not. I know that games are case by case basis, or basis is here, but so the game does slow down in the tournament, right? And in this particular matchup, I think that's going to favor Iowa State just enough. And it's not that Illinois plays incredibly fast, even though they're the number one offense in the country. I just think that that little slowdown from the tournament type of style is going to be just enough at the end for Iowa State to. Let's put it this way: I think Iowa State's going to get more, yeah, literally just one more stop than Illinois is going to. That's it. I mean, I can't. This game, I think I'm going to bet if I bet on it or when I bet on it that it's going to go to overtime. Like that's how close I'm feeling this is going to be.
Man, oh man. Let me ask you this. What's your policy, Taylor? What's your rule on abiding by what your bracket says when you filled it out a couple of weeks ago versus where we sit today? Do I have to be consistent with my bracket?
I don't give a shit. I mean, yeah, I
But
have
dog, I
Iowa
need
State.
some direction.
I have Iowa State to the Final Four, so that's where I'm rolling.
I have Iowa State in the Elite Eight. Everything in my gut's telling me that Illinois is going to win this basketball game, though. And
Wow.
I had Illinois full, and I love Illinois, but now I'm wrestling Taylor with standing on business, like Drewski, man. Like I got to pick one of these two. I know I've said, and I'm sure people are going to be like, "Well, you pick everyone. You say you love everyone, whatever." That could be true, but I really have loved it. I haven't been able to quit Brad Underwood in Illinois for the last 5 years, and I've been all on Iowa State and their defense, even a few weeks prior to us talking to J.R. Blount. So I think my gut is telling me that Illinois wins this game. And I think what I saw with Iowa State, Taylor, getting shut down by Wazoo, who's a better defensive team, I think, than Illinois.
Yeah, yeah, they are.
But
I would say.
Taylor, when you go that like when you can't put the ball in the hoop for 6 minutes, it's okay to do it against Washington State. I don't know if it's okay to do it against Illinois. And I'm not saying that's what's going to happen here. And you're right, the game slows down, but I could absolutely see a Herculean effort from Marcus Damask. I could see a superstar effort from TJ Shannon. I could see a written in the stars legendary performance on the defensive end from Coleman Hawkins, who I've been saying is one of the most versatile players in the entire damn country. Luke Goody could hit some big shots. Iowa State, I think, is a better team, but is there a hotter team right now and a more potent offense right now? I don't think so. I'm going to go against my bracket, which, by the way, this is actually me hedging because I win either way. If Iowa State
Right.
goes on, I'm good in my bracket. But in all sincerity, really, as I'm making this pick, I think the Illini get this victory.
So I would say, you talked about how good Wazoo is defensively. I would say that Iowa State is better offensively than Illinois is defensively.
Mhm.
So I think that's going to make the difference. I mean, again, barely, barely. This is the definition of a coin flip game here. Um, Ken Palm probably favors. I mean, if we care about that for this, Ken Palm probably favors Iowa State. I would guess just because they are a better offensive team than Illinois is defensively. But I mean, at this point, you're really splitting hairs. They've played very similar schedules. I would say that Illinois or Iowa State has played better teams in the tournament thus far than Illinois. Illinois played two double-digit seeds,
Mhm.
so
I suppose they
Wazoo.
did just play Duquesne. Yeah, Wazoo's
Yeah,
better than Duquesne.
yeah, most definitely. And Wazoo's a tough it's a tough matchup. They're the tallest team in the country. Wazoo is. So,
Mhm.
um, but then how do you? The argument against that is you play a completely different style the next time around in a fast team that can efficiently score the basketball. So you can't even necessarily take a lot away from playing Wazoo because the style of the team that you're playing in the next round is totally different.
Yeah. Well, that's what makes Iowa State's defense so great is that when you're the number one defensive team in the country,
True.
what that means is that you should be able to play defense at an elite high level against any type of offense. So
Yep.
this one is going to be
So
a
you're
blast off.
taking champagne campaign here.
I think the Illini will pull off a slight upset here. Yeah.
I mean, I said even I don't know if it,
I mean, they're not
uh,
favored. I know
uh,
that. I said slight
but yeah,
upset.
it's like what is it, a point? I think is what it's moved to now. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Dogfight in this one.
Where's it?
Let
This game's in Boston, right?
That's in Boston, my friend. That's
Yeah.
right.
So there's not even really an advantage. I mean, maybe a little
I
bit.
think Iowa State might have the advantage. I mean, they travel like maniacs.
It is true. Yeah.
I think they're maniacs. So that's going to be a great game. All right, Taylor, on to Friday. Let's take a look at NC State Marquette. I'll be honest with you, I'm not that intrigued. This might be the one game where you got a Cinderella, which is NC State, really the last Cinderella in here. And I'm just not that intrigued because I think Marquette's going to roll in this matchup. What do you think?
Yeah, I kind of don't give a shit about this game. I only give a shit about this game if NC State wins or
Right.
is leading. You know what I mean? Like, let's put it that way. So, the Gonzaga Purdue game, which starts half an hour after that, will probably be my main focus in this window. Unless NC State's like gets out to like a 6, 8, 10 point lead. I'm gonna root for NC State at this point. I think that probably the whole country will be rooting for NC State outside of the greater Milwaukee area. I haven't loved Marquette for a while. Um, I It's tough. You want to figure out a reason to take NC State here just for the underdog pick, but you got to think that this runs out at some point. I mean, I know we probably could have said that last round and so on and so on and so on, but you got to think this runs out at some point because if we compare it, people are comparing it to some of the UConn runs in the past, but NC
No.
State doesn't have a surefire future NBA lottery pick point guard do to do the heavy lifting here. Now, obviously, they've got the most likable guy in the tournament, DJ Bird's there, but I just don't see how they're going to be able to handle, Cam and Kolek. And Marquette's just a more talented team. I don't love Marquette. We all know that, but I just can't see them at this point losing to an 11 seed. And quite frankly, I mean, they don't deserve to go any farther if they can't beat an NC State team that's played 28 games in the last 29 days at this point.
Yeah, I'm going with Marquette in a runaway. I think Marquette got their scare and they got their razor's edge back against Colorado. And actually, they may have gotten scared in the first two games. Really, that first half against Western Kentucky was not their best. They had to kick it into gear. They started well against Colorado. It was kind of the inverse. The first half against Western Kentucky, not so great. Second half, great. First half against Colorado, great. Second half, not so great. But they ended up pulling it out and winning that game because they have closers and dudes like Tyler Kolek, like Cam Jones, like Oso Ighodaro. Their offense has just been so much fun to watch. And so I think couple that with the gas is out on NC State, man. Like this is the end of the road. I'm sorry to say, because it very well could have been the end of the road last game against Oakland. And again, who knows about Kentucky, but had they played Kentucky, I would have felt pretty confident in saying that would have been the end of the road for NC State. This is it right now. You have a team that's on a mission, a team that hates themselves and is burning because they got kicked out of the round of 32 last year with a very elite team. And now you have a guy who's in Tyler Kolek, who I think presumably is fresh, versus guys like DJ Horn and DJ Burns, who aren't so fresh. Okay. Like Tyler Kolek, how many games has NC State played in the last 2 weeks versus how many games has Tyler Kolek played in the last 2 weeks? I think this is where the fatigue finally sets in. And you say to yourself, well, they bought themselves a breather with these 3 to 4 days or whatever it is that they've had. I don't know if that's enough. And you know what? That actually may have been detrimental to them because they've just been riding this high and you get a little bit of a breather. You say, man, we're in the Sweet 16. This is great. And then I think you're going to get popped in the mouth, really, by an angry Marquette team, by a Marquette team that sees blood in the water, by a Marquette team that says this Wolfpack team is in our way to get to an Elite Eight. We absolutely have to take advantage of this. I'm going to go with Marquette, elite guard play. I even think their front court is going to wear out DJ Burns, and the NC State front court, they're far more athletic and mobile. Give me the Golden Eagles in a runaway in this one, I think.
Hostile, mobile.
Ciao.
So isn't it interesting though that the San Diego State UConn game is an 11.5 point spread and this game's only a 6.5 point spread? Does that seem strange to you?
Well, UConn's just such a damn wagon.
I know, no, I know. It's just kind of it's interesting that this game's only a 6.5 point. For all the reasons we just said, everything tells us that Marquette's winning this game, right? But the spread at 6.5 is not a big spread, in my opinion. I just find that to be a little interesting. I don't know what it mean if it means anything. I just think that there's no reason to pick NC State in this game other than just the we're hot factor.
Vibes.
That's the only. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I
literally
know,
just
totally.
the vibes factor. Yeah.
I mean, I didn't have. There was more of a reason to pick NC State over Texas Tech, but this one thing
Yeah,
that I'm
sure.
about to, yeah, but like Grant McCaslin, I think is a better coach than Kevin Keats, and like logically, I think Tech should have won that game. But you just went with, yeah, they got great vibes. They're hot as hell right now. I mentioned all the personnel, Taylor. Shaka Smart's a better coach than Kevin Keats. Okay,
Yeah.
and so I think Shaka's going to have them ready, and I think we both have Marquette in this game.
Yes.
So the only game that we've disagreed on thus far is Illinois Iowa State, correct?
But I mean, yeah, the coin flip game. Yeah, right.
As long as we've disagreed. Zags Purdue, my friend. Who's winning this?
So Purdue should win this game. Purdue is a significantly, and I say significantly, better team this year than Gonzaga. Gonzaga has, obviously had a number of warts this year. We've talked about them, how they almost were, I mean, they were on the bubble up until mid February, essentially. But I would be just shitting my pants if I was Purdue right now. Like I would, but Purdue fans, because their two tournament games, Gonzaga's look great. They have played like a top 10 team in the country since that kind of mid-February mark. They have experience. Of course, they have, this is their 9th consecutive Sweet 16. Mark Few, clearly one of the better coaches in the country. So, I mean, this game, if Gonzaga can pull this game off, it's simply because that they're hot. They're not particularly better. I mean, Zach Edey is, of course, the best player in the country. He's a matchup nightmare, of course. We know this. Purdue's guards are playing at a nice level, but Graham Ike is playing the best basketball of his career right now. They're cruising. Nemhard just set a Gonzaga record, beating out his brother. For highest number of assists in an NCAA tournament game. They got, you talk about good vibes. Gonzaga's got great vibes right now, and if you pick Gonzaga, I think that's another vibe pick. Or are you picking Gonzaga, or are you just picking against Purdue because this is where they tend to fail? Right, is right here. So it's almost like a vibe and anti-vibe pick, right? So I like Purdue in this. I also have Purdue all the way to the Final Four. This is one that's tough for me, though. I think, the spread of 5.5 in this one, I think I'm probably going to take Gonzaga just because I think it's going to be close. Edie is just going to be tough to stop, but I'm going with the vibe pick as it relates to the spread. But I think Purdue's still going to pull it off. But boy, if I was a Purdue fan, I would be just having nightmares right now because this is the worst situation that you could ever be in, right? We're finally the number one seed. We're finally, well, not that they haven't been one seed, but we're finally like, Edie's a senior, going to be a two-time National Player of the Year. And who do we get? Ooh, maybe the hottest team in the tournament, who was dead in the water and just weeks ago, and now is like, the vibes are great with them. So I think Purdue is going to win, but boy, I would be worried if I was Purdue fan.
So I get that. I do. But at some point, you're going to have to face a challenge, right? You can't just play double digit seeds all the
Totally.
way to a national championship. And so if I'm Purdue, you're kind of slowly taking the tricycle wheels off, all right, in this tournament. And what I mean by that is you get to smack up a 16 seed in Grambling. You earned that with a great regular season. So that's easy. Second game, you play a very good, albeit mid-major team in Utah State. So you're slowly graduating and gradually playing better competition. Next, you look at all these other teams, Taylor. They're playing teams from power conferences. Okay, I'm not saying Gonzaga's not a mid-major. I understand that, but Gonzaga's also still coming from the WCC, and they're coming off of a season that wasn't that stellar. Now they are very hot and they're dangerous. I get that, Taylor, but Purdue is going to go 3 straight games without playing a team from a power conference. All right, that is probably better equipped or has seen the level of Purdue in some of their conferences, is what I would say. So I'm not weeping about the path here for Purdue fans, right? At some point, it's going to get a little difficult, and this is going to be a very difficult matchup for sure. Mark Few's a goddamn genius. He's a wizard. I'm ready to give him his underrated card. Like I think somehow Mark Few is still underrated after 9 straight Sweet 16s. But I'm going to take the Boilermakers in this. This is a grow up game, Taylor. This is a hey, sack up. Like mom and dad are out for work for the day. You have to be the man of the house, right? Mom and dad are out on vacation. You have to grow up and be the man of the house. And that's what I'm looking for with Purdue, right? Personnel wise, Braden Smith, step up, man. Be the better point guard, which you've shown to be than Ryan Nemhard. I need to see that from Braden Smith. Fletcher Lawyer, step up. I need to see you outplay the likes of Ben Gregg. I need to see you outplay the likes of Dusty Stromer. Okay. Maybe even Nolan Hickman. You got to step up. Trey Kaufman-Wren and the likes of Mason Gillis. I need you to step up. I need you to outplay those other guys. I'm pretty sure I know what I'm going to get from Zach Edey, who's an absolute machine. But this is a grow up game, Taylor. And what I mean by that is last year, when they lost to Fairleigh Dickinson, everyone was saying Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer, 2 freshmen, they are not made for it. Gentlemen, I'm telling you right now, this is your time. Because if you don't show up and you lose this game, the same questions are going to linger. I don't foresee that happening. Purdue is a better team. They've been a more consistent team. They have the resume to back it up. Gonzaga is hot. I understand that. Purdue just needs to play with confidence. They need to grow up and advance to the Elite Eight. I think that happens here.
So, not that I put that much stock into ESPN FPI error, right? But they actually give NC State a better shot at beating Marquette than Gonzaga to beat Purdue, which is an interesting, look there. I think this game is going to be closer than the NC State Marquette game, but that's the computers are telling us that Purdue should win this game more easily than the 5.5 points. But this is a total, like I said, it's a total just vibe game, really. I mean, if Gonzaga beats them, it's literally just because Purdue played a bad basketball game, I think. And so, yeah, I'm still rolling with Purdue. I'm just talking about from the fan perspective. Like, this is not exactly the name I wanted to see in this situation. I much rather would have seen like a Clemson, for example, in this situation.
I'm knocking on wood. Don't bring that up. I don't want to see Clemson. I would have loved to see a 16 seed or something, man.
Have some confidence, Sue.
No, I got
confidence.
none. I got none. Not after what, 5 straight Elite Eight losses. I'm zapped of confidence, my man. But getting back to this one though, I mean, it's you got to step up to the plate. And what would terrify me the most, Taylor, is not only that, yeah, Gonzaga's hot, but they now have a track record of beating 2 very good teams. All right, at least on the surface, in Kentucky and Kansas. Now, Kentucky lost to Oakland, fine. Kansas wasn't right, fine. But they have that capability, man, of knocking you off if you're a big brand name team. Yep. You got to come with it. Come with the shits if you're Purdue, man.
No,
like,
there's
no messing around.
There's no fear for Gonzaga.
No, like there's none.
There's no fear at all. They're truly, teams like to say this. Oh yeah, we expected to win. Gonzaga's truly expecting to win that game. That can be dangerous.
For sure. Moving on now to Duke and Houston. These are 2 teams in the round of 32 that look polar opposite, really. Houston couldn't close the game, couldn't close the door on Tamu. And who's a better opponent, by the way, than James Madison? Despite the fact that James Madison had a great season, Duke handled JMU. So that sets us up for Duke Houston for the first time ever, Taylor. I actually didn't know this. Shout out to our guy, NCAA Buzzer Beaters on Twitter. He's saying that Duke and Houston are meeting for the first time ever. So who you got in this matchup? Yeah, I didn't know that.
That's really interesting, considering how good Houston was, in the
90s,
80s,
90s, yeah.
Right, yeah. So some interesting facts about these 2 teams, right? So Duke hasn't beaten a higher seed in the tournament since 1994, which is the most absurd thing of all time. followed by the second most absurd thing of all time, which the highest seed that Houston's played in their 5 consecutive Sweet 16 appearances is number 9, also as well,
That's
which is
crazy.
also ridiculous. Which means that the team that they've played every single time in the first 2 rounds for 5 years, well, obviously the first round they've been the better team, but every single time they've played a team in the second round, that team has been the team that upset the other team in the first round.
So you're
That's
saying hang on. So you're saying in the second round because they beat Arizona en route to the. Well, that was
yeah.
in the Sweet
To
16.
get to the Sweet 16, right? So to get to the Sweet 16, they've 5 consecutive round of 32s where they've played the team that upset the better seed in round 1. That's kind of crazy. I think Houston's going to win this game. That's my pick. I think that the best thing, we talked about this 2 days ago. The best thing that probably could have happened to Houston was allowing 96 points to Tamu and almost losing that game, because Kelvin Sampson's now going to be like, yo, guys, let's lock this down. And I just don't think Duke has risen to the occasion enough this year. I don't think they have the firepower. Flip is a very, very good basketball player, but he was supposed to be competing for National Player of the Year. I know that his leg got amputated after the Wake Forest game, which has been tough for them to deal with. But I just don't see the firepower from Duke. McCain can shoot the ball. Flip is good. Flip's really good, but Houston is the most suffocating team of the last 5 years, including this year. I think Houston, just has the horses, especially on the defensive end, to shut down Duke. So I am going to take Houston in this one, and I'll take Houston to cover in this one too, over 4.5 points.
Going with the Cougs as well. This has been a really good run for Duke, and I've
Mm-hmm.
been saying all year that I think somehow you jackals have made me defend them and call them under. I don't want to do this next
Multiple
year. By the way.
times. We've had to defend Duke multiple times this year.
I don't want to do this next year, please. Okay. I want to get back to my comfort zone of making fun of Duke. But you guys just said the most nonsensical things about this team all year that I had to say something. But I think it comes to an end here. And this is a bit of a gradual process for John Shire. Okay. So last year he takes over the reins and he gets the team to the NCAA tournament. I think they even went undefeated in Cameron, Taylor, but they lost in the round of 32 to a tough Tennessee team, right? This year, they advanced to the Sweet 16 with 2 really good performances. But then you got to play one of the best teams in the entire country. Are you there yet? Like Duke and John Shire, are you there yet to say that you're also one of the best teams in the entire country and that you're on the same level as Kelvin Sampson? I don't think so. I don't think you are just yet. Additionally, in terms of personnel, I look at the backcourt. Jeremy Roach. It is hellacious to play against Jamal Shed in this Houston defense, the perimeter defense, fully healthy. I don't know how you're going to do it with a bum finger, man. And I don't know what's going, or a dislocated finger, a dislocation of something. Like he got hurt in that JMU game within the first 5 or 7 minutes. Going up against Houston as a guard is tough as it is when you're 100% healthy. When you got an injury, good luck, man. Like Houston is probably going to be licking their chops. Additionally, Jared McCain, I think he's been tremendous, one of the hottest freshmen in the entire country. Even Tyrese Proctor has been really good. I'm taking Jamal Shed. Yep. I'm taking the better player and the more experienced and the more seasoned player in Jamal Shed. You're not beating them in this game. They're tougher than you. And that's not to say Duke's soft, but Houston is just going to grind them out and grind them into dust. And it's going to end up being like a 14-point game where Duke is going to get only as close as maybe 7 or so. I got the Cougs in this one.
I think Duke's just going to get frustrated.
Potentially.
Again, like you said, I don't think they're soft, but I think they're just going to get frustrated with not being able to do what they want to do. The other problem for Duke is that Duke doesn't play fast enough to get out ahead of Houston. They're both Duke's the number 5 offensive efficient team in the country, which I think has been under talked about thing throughout the year, especially late in the year. But Houston's good offensively too. We talk about Houston's defense, but Houston's offense is good from an efficiency standpoint, is great as well. So you're talking about one of the slowest teams in the country who is extreme efficient offensively and maybe the best defensive team in the country. And you're playing a team that is even though they're efficient offensively, they're not going to be fast enough, in my opinion, to get out ahead of Houston at all. Where Houston can't lock them down for 3 or 4 more possessions and get back in this game if that's how it does start. So, yeah, I'm all Houston here. Here's a funny thing, Sue, and just because they're the Blue Devils, you know that Duke's average number of possessions per game is 66.6.
What a nugget.
Does that make it better or worse for them? I don't
I
know, but
just
it's
think it
on
means
brand.
it's on
And
brand.
nothing,
Yes.
just on brand. Yeah, right.
That's it. That's it. See, this is good. This is how I enter the offseason with Duke, viewing them as Satan themselves, like the satanic cult that they are. I like that. All right, we're back. Last game of Sweet 16 Friday. They knew, the schedule makers knew what they were doing. Ending
So good.
Thursday night with Iowa State, Illinois, and now Friday, the Shark will be there in Detroit,
The D.
Creighton, Tennessee, to close out the region of I do not trust you guys, Creighton. I do not trust you guys, Tennessee. I do not trust you, Gonzaga. I do not trust you, Purdue. Jays, Vols, Taylor, who you got?
Well, Sue, let me ask you a question. Okay.
Oh, yes.
What is it that they say in Detroit?
Uh, uh,
You and I say it all the time.
I give her that D because that's where I was born and raised in.
In Detroit, they say "What up, doe?" Or in this situation, I think they say "What up, a do?" is what I'm going to go with on this one. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Tennessee on this one. I would love to see a Tennessee Purdue matchup in the next round. So I probably would be maybe rooting a little bit for Tennessee here, but this game is again, I just love this from some of the things that I like to pay attention to personally. Just it's kind of it's offense versus defense in a lot of ways, and it's not that Creighton is bad offensively by any means. It's just Tennessee is as almost as good as Iowa State and Houston is defensively. And I think it's not going to come down to a lot to talk about here other than is Dalton Connect going to ball out or not? I really think that's pretty much the game here. If a few guys can knock down a few shots like we just talked about last game, Tennessee only shot like 12% from 3, and we both talked about, similar to Houston, that maybe was the best thing that could have happened to them is that they played their bad game already, and now they got that out of the way. So Creighton, though, of course, is a very offensively gifted team, and they are still very strong defensively too. It's not like they're a slouch on that end of the ball. I'm going to really look forward to the Adu, Kalkbrenner, Dalton Connect, Baylor Shireman. That's going to be an awesome matchup right there. That's just going to be all day. I could see like maybe not at the very end of the game because I think the game will slow down quite a bit at that point, but I could see a stretch in the second half where it's just Shireman connect, Shireman connect, Shireman connect, just back and forth, and not even easy shots, just like absurd fadeaways, and I could see that happening with this game. The crowd at the Little Caesars Arena is going to be absurd. I would think for this game, it's going to be a lot of orange, a lot of blue. Some big fan bases there in Detroit with Purdue, Gonzaga, Creighton, and Tennessee. That's going to be a fun arena to be in on Friday night. But I am going to roll with Tennessee. I am just super looking forward to this matchup. It's, in my mind, the same as the Iowa State-Illinois matchup. It's a total coin flip for me. I could tell you 100 different reasons why it would go one way or another. I think Tennessee is their defense is going to travel when the game slows down. I think the number one guy I would want in this game to take the last shot or the biggest shot is Dalton Connect, but there's a lot of great options for that specific question. That's really what it came down. Who do I think is the very, very best player in this game? And it's Dalton Connect. How much better than he is than Kalkbrenner or Shireman or any of that? Not like a ton by any means, but that's where I'm going to go.
So this is a matchup, Taylor, that when Selection Sunday happened and the brackets came out, we were circling and we were fired up for. And we said, we have to get this. And we were close to not getting either of these teams, right? Creighton almost lost to Oregon in overtime. Tennessee almost lost to Texas. And if we got an Oregon Texas matchup instead of this game, I would have been livid. But alas, we are here with Creighton, Tennessee.
So
To your
much
point,
more, so much better.
so much better. Yeah, that would have been the stinker of the Sweet 16. But to your point about who's the better player versus who you want taking that last shot, I think Dalton Connect's a better player than Baylor Shireman. But who do I want taking that last shot? I think I want Baylor Shireman because I've
Sure,
seen
okay.
Shireman hit some daggers, man. So I don't want Tennessee to be in a position where Baylor Shireman can either force the game to overtime or win the ball game. But I am going to go with the Vols because of their defense. I think we've made so much of their offense this year, and rightfully so. I think in December, you talked about their pace, and this is what makes them different from years past. And the offense was so debilitating sometimes. It was truly debilitating against Texas, but they still found a way to get enough stops, to get to the free throw line, and to put the ball in the hoop just a few more times. All right. They lose that game every single time the last 5 years, without a doubt in my mind. But they gutted it out because they had elite defense. Their offense is going to play better. Offense is going to play much better. You have no choice but to play better from the perimeter and also just from a shooting perspective. So I think they're going to play better against Creighton, but the defense is also going to elevate. And I think that's where the difference is going to be. I don't think Creighton has seen a defense like this all season. And that's a little troubling. And Creighton's been in some wars, they've been in some battles. But this Tennessee defense is different, okay? And they are physical as hell. They've been in a battle with Purdue, which I think took place in Honolulu with like a million foul. Like Tennessee has been through the ringer and the grind, and so is Creighton. I just don't think Creighton's going to be ready for this defense, and I think Tennessee is going to leverage that. And I also want to point out a name, Tobe Awaka. He's had some decent minutes for the Vols. If he can give you like a spurt of maybe 5 points, that could be enough to win this ball game. I don't expect it to happen because he's lost now. Like he's completely lost, not Owaka, but I'm talking about Santiago Vescovi. I think it's over for him. I would love to be wrong because I'm rooting for the Vols. But Santiago Vescovi, if you want to show up, man, please do so. I'm not expecting it, but just know that the door is unlocked. The front porch has a beer ready for you. If you want to come on home, you're more than welcome to, pal.
Yeah, this Tennessee team is interesting in that I don't think we totally nailed who was going to play well. I think we all knew Tennessee was going to be very good, extremely good this year. I don't think we nailed, or at least I didn't nail who was going to be the reasoning as to why they were so good. Vescovi is damn near worthless at this point.
It's honestly sad. Like I want Vescovi. It's crazy to see him regress like this.
Right. You know, Jordan Gainey, who played 32 minutes a game last year, played 18 minutes a game this year. And then you, of course, you got a guy who I've avoided saying his name for almost the entire year, and that's Josiah Jordan James. I got it right for the first time in his 4-year career. Even he hasn't been incredibly impactful. You know, he's averaging 8 points a game as a senior, a super senior no less, and he's not playing any more minutes than he did. He's playing less minutes now than he did when he was a freshman. So I'm not sure we completely nailed the why Tennessee was going to be very good, and maybe it was just me that didn't nail that. But they are as good as advertised at the beginning of the year. So there's 3 teams I really like. I don't like one of them, but you can kind of tell what I'm rooting for in my picks or what I look for. Tennessee, again, elite defensively. That's not slow. If you're elite defensively and not slow, I love you. Essentially, is what I'm saying. You know, they are efficient offensively, and they're not fast by any means, but they are not slow. And if you look at the teams I love too, like Arizona, elite defensive team, their top 10 defensive team, fast. North Carolina, elite defensive team, decently fast. Tennessee, not slow, elite defensively. There's no surprise that those are the 3 of the teams that I picked to move to the Elite Eight. That's what I like to look for. Creighton is probably slower than people realize, including myself, because they seemingly are so all offensively adept all the time. But they are a little slow compared to Tennessee. I think in most years you would kind of flip the paces of these 2 teams. But boy, I'm so excited for this matchup.
It's going to
Man,
be an all-timer, Taylor. Here's the thing I will say. Creighton has 5 guys. All right, Creighton has 5 guys that I would put up against anyone in the country. Yes, that includes Purdue. Yes, that includes UConn. Yes, that includes Houston. Yes, that includes Carolina. Anyone. They have 5 dudes, just those 5 on the court against your 5. I'll take those dudes quite a number of times. The thing is that this is a team game that expands beyond just 5 guys. But just keep that in mind, folks. Like the 5 I'm talking about: Shireman, Kalkbrenner, Trey Alexander, Stephen Ashworth, and Mason Miller. Those 5 I would take as a unit against any other 5. Uh, but the thing is that Tennessee has some other dudes as well. So I think this is going to be an all timer. We're both going with the Vols.
I will say I think Tennessee's going to have to make at least 10 threes to win this game. Maybe 12.
It'd be a tall
They're gonna.
task.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. They're gonna have to shoot the ball well because Creighton's going to, in my opinion. That's the tough part with Tennessee's matchup, right? Tennessee's so good defensively, but Creighton does have dudes that can shoot in tough
Yeah, of
situations.
course.
You know,
Of
Shireman. So
course.
that's why Tennessee is gonna need a couple threes. They'll get 3 at minimum from Connect, but they're gonna need a couple other guys to hit some threes.
Can you give me 37% Vols? If you
Right,
can
yeah,
give
there
me
you go. You have
37%,
the number, right.
give me 37% from perimeter, and you will be in the Elite Eight. I'm confident in saying that.
Just yeah, as long as Vescovy doesn't shoot any of them.
Just I feel for him, man. Like I like Santiago Vescovi. It's crazy to see his regression though. But Taylor, I'm fired up, man. This is when the rubber meets the road. This is when you really get to sink your teeth into the ribeye. It's going to be beautiful. We got some great matchups. We're going to be back here to preview the Elite Eight. That'll come out Saturday morning before those games start. But for now, enjoy the Sweet 16, and we will catch you here next time on Theater and College Hoops.